it's Micah. Welcome to another edition of our Wednesday reaction series where we are going through all of the number one hits of the 1980s. This week we have our first 1 week number one that we've reacted to. This is from August of 1980, Christopher Cross, and the song is Sailing. I do remember this song, and I remember it as being a poppy mid-tempo song. I can hear the chorus in my head. Don't know how much of the body of the song, the verses and everything else I'll remember, but I do remember the chorus very well. There was a really strong pop bent to the early 80s. There was the remnants of disco in America. A lot of the comments regarding some of the disco and coming out of disco songs that were popular or went number one in 1980, and I keep talking about disco dying. Yes, I know that disco only really died in America, where people are fickle and don't always have the best judgment about music. But in America, the music sort of took a poppy bent. We've had two throwback rock and roll songs at number one. We've had one prog rock. We've had two or three disco, post-disco jams on here, and I think we're going to have another one next week. But I think the home base for music in 1980 was pop. And last week we had Magic by Olivia Newton-John, a song I absolutely love, and that was the predecessor to this song at number one in 1980. And although there are some rock flourishes in Magic and some, I would call it pop rock, but it really is. It seems like its soul is in pop, and this is another song that's very poppy from memory. And one thing I remember from my early childhood is Christopher Cross and Joe Jackson. Those two, for some reason, are just the absolute embodiment of early 80s pop, and there's something about those melodies of those songs that kind of does something for me that it's not entirely comfortable. It's like an almost unpleasant nostalgia because it's so resonant. It's uncomfortable. And I've never really been able to verbalize what that is. So thank you all for being my therapist today. But there's something so wistful about these melodies that I can't quite tap into. And like I said, it almost becomes uncomfortable for me. So if you see me squirming during this reaction, that'll probably be what you're witnessing me experiencing. So be prepared. Without further ado, let's get into Sailing by Christopher Cross. Wow. That's good stuff. I think too often and I had the same reaction to, and I'm interrupting myself, I know. I had the same reaction to the Captain and Tennille song from several weeks ago, where I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, Captain and Tennille. And then you listen to the song, and you're like, wow, there's something really going on here. This is not hokey pop music. This is good stuff. Christopher Cross is obviously tapping into this singer-songwriter vibe really, really deeply. Even like the only other song that's come across to me as such a singer-songwriter type song that we've reacted to from the 80s was one of the very first videos I reacted to, which was Escape by Rupert Holmes. That, for whatever reason, that's been one of my most watched videos. It was very early on, and I know that the quality of both the video and my commentary was kind of closer to here than here on that, and I don't claim that I'm at an expert level yet, but hopefully with practice I've gotten a little better at it. But for all of my snarky comments about the Rupert Holmes song, I did sense that he was really trying to write a meaningful song, or a song that had a very strong narrative backbone to it. And with this, you can really tell that Christopher Cross is trying very hard to write, and not as in like it seems like he's trying too hard, but he is putting a lot of effort into writing lyrics that mean something. They don't all just fall into a neat little meter and rhyme. He's really trying to convey a feeling, and he's doing it in very specific ways with the way the words here are very intentional. They're not just placeholders for the cadence of the song, which a lot of times is what it feels like in pop music. The word choices here are great, and I can't even clue into all of the different things that he's saying in the song. The overall, of course, effect is very calming and zen, and the imagery of sailing, of course, is a very zen image of floating out onto the water, being directed by whichever way the wind blows, and letting that take you wherever it will. So there's a sort of weightlessness, a sort of freedom, and a sort of not having to think about where you are, where you're going, just luxuriating in that feeling. And although he's conveying something that is almost wordless, he's using all the right words to take you to that place. So I'm really digging the songwriting, and I'm glad that this video is captioned, because I don't want to miss any of these lyrics. They're fantastic, and the melody is, like I said before I started the video, these melodies of his songs and Joe Jackson songs, they get under my skin in a really weird, almost uncomfortable way. They're just so good, and I am having echoes of the kind of awe that I felt last week when I was reacting to Magic. The songwriting and the melody is pushing emotional buttons. So that's and that's when you've really got a great melody, or you're incredibly manipulative, one or the other, or maybe both. So let's get back into the second verse. It gets the best of me when I'm sailing, all caught up in the reverie. Every word is a symphony. Won't you believe me? Sailing takes me away to where I'm always headed. was good. I really applaud musicians who have a vision for how they want to sound and how they want their music to come across, and they don't veer from that, and they don't sacrifice. It's a little presumptuous to look at anyone's musical output and say, oh, they were just trying to do this or they were just trying to do that. But there's also times when the sincerity is obvious, and I don't think that there was an insincere moment in the creation of this record. There's something about the earnestness of it. It's not too far. It's not too serious. It's not too contemplative, and it's definitely not preachy. There's a lesson to be learned about the songwriting here. Tone is very important. Now, a few weeks ago, and I'm going to draw a couple of parallels here. A couple of weeks ago, I was listening to "It's Still Rock and Roll to Me" from Billy Joel, and that is a great angle to come at songwriting from. Billy Joel attacks each of his songs lyrically, basically grabs you by the throat and says, you're going to come around to my way of looking at this. Like, he's really trying to persuade you. And Christopher Cross is like 180 degrees on the other side, where he doesn't seem bothered about whether you agree with him or not. He's simply telling his story the way he wants to tell it. And so I feel like although both are great songwriters, the laid-backness of Christopher Cross on this song is something that Billy Joel probably couldn't touch. Now Billy Joel fans can come after me if you want to, and you may be right. There very well may be laid-back, non-confrontational lyrics in Billy Joel's catalog for sure. But just from the songs that I know, it really sounds like he's always very intense and very invested in the fact that you end up agreeing with him, whatever it is he's saying in his songs. And it's the mood of this song and the other songs that I'm familiar with from Christopher Cross are very much unconcerned about what's happening on the other side to the listener or from the listener. And I could draw all kinds of parallels here. Okay, I'll allow myself one. From a vocal perspective, I feel like Whitney Houston was like vocally like Billy Joel, where she really just grabbed you and wanted you to feel exactly what she was feeling and wasn't going to be satisfied until you did. Whereas someone like my favorite, Janet Jackson, is more so in her own head and really just trying to come up with a thing that seems most authentic to her. So there's almost more of a zen kind of internal thing going on with her vocals, which is part of the reason why people tend to be more drawn to the extroverts who are putting everything on display rather than the people who are more centered and internally focused. And I kind of feel like the same dichotomy is happening from a songwriting perspective with Christopher Cross and Billy Joel. The other parallel I want to draw here is I do know enough about Christopher Cross to know that he was huge for a couple of years in the early 80s, and then what I don't know is exactly why, if there was a specific reason or if his time just passed, but he very much fell off. Like, he fell off the charts anyway after these couple of years of huge successes. I think he may have won. Did he win the Oscar for Best Song for the Arthur's theme like the next year? And I know he cleaned up at the Grammys, and then I don't recall anything really happening for him after the early 80s. And I was trying to think, well, what was that about? Was that his trajectory? Was it, because he had more of an understated style? And immediately what popped to mind for me was Norah Jones. Basically, it almost seems like he was the Norah Jones like 20 years before Norah Jones, or she was the Christopher Cross of the 2000s, I guess, where she had a huge album that blew up. It was unlikely because she was a very laid-back, jazzy songwriter, songstress, and so it just wasn't meant to be a long-term thing because those types of performers have trouble with the attention spans of pop culture, and that's just my armchair take on it. But for anyone who was like really tuned into the music scene in the early 80s or you're fans of Christopher Cross, you can let me know in the comments, like, was there something else going on here, or was it really just a matter of he had a really big couple of years and his time just passed? Because I do know that most pop music careers really are much quicker than we remember them being, for the amount of impact that they had. Even people who are much more famous than Christopher Cross may have had a really brief period of creative output, which drives a whole lot of what we remember about them. But I really enjoyed his vocal delivery once I tuned into it. Like, I don't know if I would call it jazzy per se, but he never really enunciated the beginning of his phrases. He would always just sort of slide up into them, so there might be a syllable or two at the beginning of the line or a syllable or two at the end of the line that would almost drop off. It would be practically inaudible, which reinforced the sort of internal Zen-like focus on creating the mood he was trying to create, even if he sacrificed some of that intelligibility for his lyrics. And it's a cool vocal style as well. It's an interesting way to attack a vocal, and I think that's. I want to say that from what I remember that this is part of his overall vocal style, where he would just kind of go get up inside the vocal and not necessarily just shout it out. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but that's kind of what I'm getting. I thought the instrumentation on this was beautiful, and there was not a lot of showboating. The piano solo was impressively restrained, but still very evocative and right in line with the Zen nature of the entire song. I just thought this was a beautiful composition altogether, and I enjoyed revisiting it because I've never really sat down and listened to it like that. Next week, we're going to get back into the disco/post-disco era with Diana Ross, #1. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right one here. Yep, the next one is going to be Upside Down by Diana Ross. That was #1 starting in September or I guess for almost the entirety of September 1980, after Christopher Cross spent his 1 week at #1. I know that song as well, and I know I'm going to have a good time reacting to that. And I have a lot of opinions about Miss Ross as well, and I know you're just dying to hear all of them. So until then, thank you for joining me today. Please be sure to like this video if you did like it. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined. And please remember to make music better.